Carter Williams.
How are you doing, Ellen?
I'm good. So we are finally back for a Food is Health live stream.
Yeah, we haven't done this in a while. I have no idea why.
And I have something to share. I have lots of things to share, but I have something queued up that is exactly how I feel right now. Let me see if I can do this. I'm very proud of myself for having this teed up. Okay, let's see if this works. Are we ready? Okay.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this. What's up, Mitch?
Isn't that the best? Like, I'm so proud of myself right now for doing that.
Who is that?
It's a movie, but it's like a meme, you know? But it just, isn't it perfect? Like, this is how I felt this morning. I've been waiting for this. We talk all the time, but there's just something different about a live stream.
Okay. Well, we have
Isn't
a live
there?
stream. We're going to solve the world's problems.
We are going to solve the world's problems. And we have some folks on with us today. So I am going to make sure I'm on mute so that so maybe we can solve the problems with everyone here with us live. See what we can get done today. So let's start with what is happening and what is changing, because there is a lot going on, right? I think sort of in the more consumer-oriented space, we have this going on. And again, I am teed up and ready. So let me share this, talk a little bit about this one. Let's see, here we go. Okay. So this is happening.
Real food.
Real food is happening. So, our friend Bree is working with HHS now, Bree Cox.
Full time or is it a consultant?
I don't know the arrangement, and that will be up for her to sort of share. But she is helping with all this stuff, which is exciting. But I think here's the important part about it. She actually wrote a piece for the Maha Report on it. But let's watch a little bit of it. So here we go. Episode 1. So they do salmon cakes. And what's interesting about that is that what I've been told is that the objective here is to teach people what you can cook for $5 a meal. Like the meals that they're preparing are meant to cost $5. So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of support. It's kind of all over the board. But here is, let's play the video a little bit here.
We talk about seafood a lot, and one of the things that actually drove me into the restaurant industry was understanding people need to eat more seafood, more of the right types of seafood. The thing about the new dietary guidelines was really huge for me was getting people to eat more seafood. Our seafood consumption is so low.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I am HHS Secretary. Welcome to the Real Food Show. Welcome to the Real Food Show. Thanks to President Trump. Put the Real Food where it belongs, at the center. I'm traveling across America, connecting with food chefs to show families how to cook delicious, nutritious meals with real ingredients, all at America. It's time to eat real food. Let's get cooking. Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You're HHS. We're here for the first episode of the Real Food Show. I'm here today with Chef Andrew. At his home in Huntington Beach. This beautiful right.
So here he is.
Start a good extra virgin olive oil, or you can even use
They're walking
tallow
through
or
how to do it.
oil. It's neutral.
And then they're putting the price, right?
It's not full of all those seed oil.
So that's that. So we don't need to sit and watch the Real Food Show the whole time, but it's something that's getting noticed. And I think we should talk about it for a couple of minutes.
I have not watched it yet.
Okay.
But I think the fact that you can eat real food and good food at less than $5, I think it's fair to say that price is not an issue. Maybe a bit of an issue in certain cases, but the real cost of the food is not really the food itself, but prep time and convenience. And if you go out and buy salmon, does it go bad? And all those things start stacking up to turn into the frictions that are the reason why people don't probably eat, and why they prefer to have some kind of prepared meal, and that starts to drive the price up. But it's good that they're pushing on real food.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a news item. And I think, what has been brought up is there's a big issue with time poverty. So it's great. We want to eat real food, and it's great that we're learning, easy preparation, affordable, quote unquote, right? Whether $5 a meal is affordable, the whole different public health and sort of poverty and threshold and income and all of that we'll get into. I think that's all really great. I think that I like that they're tapping into the chef crowd a lot. There has been some discussion. Somebody brought up to me on social media the idea of, well, we're not using experts. Why are we not using degreed experts? And I thought that was a really valid point. And so I did pass that feedback on to HHS directly. And I made the suggestion that perhaps we look at pairing them up, right? There's no reason you can't have somebody like Kelly Springer, who's a leading registered dietitian in the country, Megan Grega, who is with the Kellen Foundation. We've got some of our lifestyle medicine folks that are, just really, really informed, really like Melissa Sunderman, the outdoor medicine. There's so many great experts that are practicing in this field that to pair them up with a chef would be a pretty cool concept, I think, because I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we'll see. So there's that.
How many viewers do you have?
I don't know. I haven't checked, but I'm sure that it's a big audience. I mean, we've seen through the Nielsen data, through everything, that the public does pay attention to HHS when the Secretary of Health, when things are changed, when things are said, things are brought out, people act. And so, it's been a whole thing. All right. What else do we want to jump in on? I want to dive in at some point into the combination of the health agent that we built and the hormone stuff that I wrote about this morning.
Well, just to finish up one thing on Kennedy, which I don't.
Yeah.
He triggered a bunch of controversy over the weekend around vaccine conversations. He was in a sort of a combative interview with CNN, and it was what it was. I mean, but the thing I'm disappointed about is we keep relitigating vaccine, and the issue we have is there, 280 Americans dying every day of a pandemic called type 2 diabetes. And there's zero attention span whatsoever. Instead, they're having a fight about vaccines that the secretary gets engaged on, the press gets engaged on, maybe it trolls for views to re-energize elements of the base on both sides. But it's disappointing we can't have a straightforward conversation where the same amount of energy we have when we're having hearings on what happened during COVID and all those things that, pandemics caused by bacteria and viruses are natural events. Chronic disease is a human created event. We've only had it for about 75 years, and it was a product of what we did to the food system. And we can reverse it, and there's high assignability to us creating it. But it doesn't get quite nearly the attention. It doesn't get anything close to the attention. And it kills as many people as anything COVID does, but it does it every day of the week without anybody paying attention to it, and has at an exceedingly high rate since the mid-'80s.
Yeah, and just at an exponentially greater number on the daily, basically.
Yeah, I mean, lands in the cost of everything.
Well, and it's leading to other things. I was working on something this morning around the dementia tsunami. And, that goes back to, was basically breaking this whole concept apart, which is, we sort of think about everything very bifurcated in human health and in healthcare. And we think about, dementia's over here and type 2 diabetes over there, right? And these things, and really putting that together to say, it goes back to you've said this to me repeatedly. And at first I really didn't like it. Now I've come to accept it as and embrace it, as I do with most things that you challenge my intellect on, is this concept that chronic disease is going away. And I think when we talk about type 2 diabetes and then we step up a layer and say, we're really talking about metabolic dysfunction, right? Then now you look at it and say, okay, so we to your point, we basically don't do anything about type 2 diabetes to stop it, other than prescribing insulin to try to control it, right? We try to manage it and control it. We don't try to reverse it, stop it, upstream, shut the pipeline down. And so then that just creates this pipeline of all sorts of, conditions that come about, and you end up with polychronic people. And we have this dementia tsunami. And I had this really interesting sort of epiphany. We've danced around this a little bit, but it really popped into my head yesterday on a walk or 2 days ago, was one of our good, I call them my unicorns. Has made the point, like, there's this dementia tsunami, and as a healthcare company, what do I do there? Because what people probably don't understand is that your health insurance and Medicare doesn't cover your long-term care costs. So if you end up with dementia and you can't care for yourself at home anymore, there is no insurance for you to not be at home. It all ends when the acute part of that ends. So when it's just this long-term chronic condition of dementia, you're at home, and then the way it works today is you have to deplete every bit of income you have until you're Medicaid eligible. And then you can go into a Medicaid facility. It's a really bad cutoff point, right? It's a missed link. And we were talking about this because both my friend and I have parents with dementia and Alzheimer's. And so we're both dealing with this. And it went back to your point about chronic disease going away. Well, she was talking about behavior changes that her family has made because they don't want to turn into that, right? And so I think there's this interesting bifurcation opportunity. People sort of push back on this idea of health span. They're like, oh, it's just wellness and longevity. There's no money for it, or it's only for wealthy people. The truth of the matter is I don't agree anymore, right? Which goes back to your point of chronic disease going away. So,
breaking this down a little bit, I was putting together our investor newsletter, a sort of quarterly update, and thinking through what we're seeing in the market. So we were out at Aspen Health and talking to a lot of healthcare leaders.
Which, by the way, I decided today, Carter, we are not going to name them all because we invested in being there, and we are bringing together those who want to do it. We're not going to share with the world all of that. I've decided this as of today. By the way.
So if you wake up every morning and you say chronic disease is going away,
yeah.
You then, if you run a business, if you run a healthcare facility, and somebody comes in and says chronic disease is going away, don't argue whether it's true or not. What do we do? Well, all of a sudden, the new kidney dialysis center that you built is an albatross. But the complications from acute disease, if someone has cancer and chronic disease is going away, the complications that cause unexpected longer stays or more complex care delivery that doesn't get fully reimbursed, they go away. So if you think about it, a hospital system, and then, so a hospital is sort of doing two things. They're treating chronic disease, they're treating acute disease. We've seen some fantastic announcements and advancements in what you do about pancreatic cancer. I got a great briefing the other day from one of our companies that's now got a blood assay that will catch ovarian cancer 2 years ahead of when it presents. So we are in acute disease. We're thinking hard about how to solve this. And if you go back 70 years ago, 80 years ago, we really moved to the Rockefeller model, so to speak, of intense scientific practice. Well, initially to get rid of pathogens. It's sort of a byproduct of the Spanish flu. And how do we get rid of those things that kill people? In that process, we expanded chronic disease and we intensified focus on acute disease. So now if we go forward and think about what happens, if you're running a hospital or healthcare system, to some degree, if chronic disease is going away, what business are you in? We have said that chronic disease represents about 90% of healthcare costs. Not alone, but complicates it in a sense. But so the first thing you do is say, well, what am I going to do to all those people that I was treating chronic disease, how am I going to make money on them or getting out of the business? And then how do I double down? So it might be that an institution starts focusing a lot more on delivering acute disease. And if chronic disease goes away, we're probably as a nation much more willing to spend money on cancer and heroic efforts on acute disease. But then there are going to be opportunities to, you're at birth, we're going to do your genome, we're going to understand what's going on, we're going to manage your longevity, we're going to manage, all of a sudden there are other offerings that hospitals can present to go from managing your chronic disease to helping you manage your lifespan. So there's a new opportunity for healthcare to manage lifespan. That triggered me into a whole nother wormhole. So a long setup here. And that is what I would refer to as undiagnosed refractory. So undiagnosed refractory is a geeky term for what you call land of misfit toys. So I have IBS, I can't get it resolved. I have these symptoms I can't get resolved. I've got idiopathic neuropathy with it. Nobody has any idea what's causing it. It's there, but it's not diagnosed in terms of what's causing it. Idiopathic small fiber neuropathy. So it's a little bit angled in, but there are things that people get that there really is, they keep presenting themselves and no treatment really resolves. That's the refractory. And it's undiagnosed because I can't really pin it down. I don't have somebody to call it. Well, so I dug in today on this and sort of said, okay, well, this is, people have got IBS. It's not being treated. They have symptoms that some people call PCOS. They have long COVID. And to some degree, you have RFK running around based on his work with toxins and such, blaming toxins but assigning cause. And then people saying he's a nut. But there's an observation that people are unhealthy, they're not happy, and they're trying to get resolution. They go to the doctor, and the doctor says, just live with it. Your hormones problem, just live with it. That crowd of undiagnosed refractory is, by some measure, somewhere around 25 to 65 million people. I did some digging at this, 25 to 65 million people who aren't getting any kind of proper care. So the healthcare system is not really making any money on them. They're aggravated. They're sort of dissatisfied customers of the healthcare system. The healthcare system, which can make perfectly good money treating chronic disease, isn't that terribly motivated to go serve these people. And they're not nutcases. They don't really, only 4% of them actually use alternative medicine. So it's not like they're all going to alternative medicine. But essentially, they're a crowd of somewhere on the order, on the low side, 25 million, on the high side, 65 million of people that are entering the healthcare system to be treated There is no satisfactory solution for it. They bounce around in healthcare, and nobody's concentrating on that as a new revenue stream.
100%. So Andy's on. And I want to show him how much I love playing with my Garmin and sort of maybe persuade him to try and help me on the MCP API front. He's smiling right now. He just sent me a smiley face.
You see,
So
I just the first pictures of the Fenix 9, and I'm on the 7. So my address is 355 East Bay Street.
he will not send you a new one. He would send it to me
Springs,
first.
Michigan.
Okay, maybe. Okay, so then maybe I could like make
this is
you.
my 7, and it's a solar version. I wouldn't mind a 9.
Okay, Andy, Carter's placed his order, but I'm going to show you what a loyal Garmin user I am now. So, okay. So I am going to transition this. I want to really bridge this. This is, I just sent you the link to order it. This is great. Okay. So this is really important. So what I've done is I want our Substack audience to be able to engage with companies like Garmin, for example, for tracking. And I want them to also be able to engage with companies like, for example, Plant Strong, who have a really high quality, whole plant-based food line. They're getting ready to partner with us on a challenge for our subscribers. And you and I you have built a health, we called it HealthSpan, an app for consumers. So we have two things that we've built, right? We've built the consumer facing piece, which we need to go back to. I'll save that for a minute. There's a lot of people working on that. So I think we both realized that if we're going to put energy somewhere where we really need to put the energy is in for the operators, for companies like Garmin, for health systems, for food companies to be able to integrate and come together. All that to say, I took matters into my own hands and basically graduated out of Claude with my own health data to start understanding what I need the HealthSpan app to do. What helps me, because I do live in the land of the misfit toys for a whole variety of reasons, from autoimmune disease to perimenopause to just being a strange person. Right. But I've taken my executive assistant agent, Thomas, and I have now trained him to also be my health coach. And I'm bridging this back to what you're saying because it is so powerful what can be done now for the personalization of these things, for the personalization of your own health. And to your point, no one is monetizing this at the level it could be monetized. And I think where you and I are coming from is this isn't about some app company. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, for example, the HealthSpan app we want to do. That to me is a utility, and really it's going to be commoditized, right? That's just a means to an end. What's really powerful is how you integrate all these things and how people can use it and how you could deliver care and all of that. So I want to take a minute. This is going to be super interactive. First of all, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do is go back to the other day. So I thought this was very cool. So I want to guilt Andy on what a pain it is for me still, and what a handicap it is with Garmin to not have what I have with Aura. So let me share my screen.
Does Aura have an MCP yet?
Yes. And I set it up. So you want to explain for a minute technically what that means for people when I say I've set an MCP up with Aura?
So an MCP is a way for you to hook Claude or OpenAI directly to your data over in Aura or Garmin.
Correct.
and to extract it and ask questions around it so that you can say, Claude, please look at my workouts on my Garmin. I've got bike rides on my Garmin from 2009 forward. Please look at that and the trends over time and help plan out what I should be doing next. And it will go grab that data without having to know much about Garmin. That's what the MCP does. It's an advancement from an API. You may not know what an API is, but it makes it easier to connect to those other tools and start bringing data together. And what we should see in applications generally is consumers less and less often going directly to the app, the Garmin app or the Oura app, and more having conversations and tools like Claude, in which they are pulling together the Quest data and their Garmin data via
well, and that's right. So, okay. So this is what I do every day. I wake up and I say to Thomas, my sleep data is in. Because interestingly enough, even though the API is set up for Thomas to pull my data every day, I have to actually go into Aura, in the morning and just, how you like sync it or whatever. That has to happen before he can read the data, which is kind of interesting. So this is what Thomas does for me every morning. Now, what everybody has to understand is I have found in my health data that my sleep is my kryptonite, period. And I have gone deep on that. I do not think everybody needs to go deep on their health. Some people, their glucose is an issue, right? Like everybody has their thing. And this is where personalized medicine, I think, is super important. But Andy, if you're still here, what I love is all I do is say, hey, Thomas, my sleep data zone. And so, for example, I'll be honest, I haven't been uploading my Garmin sleep data as a comparison because I don't like having to take screenshots now. I've kind of gotten lazy. It's like whatever can get automatically pulled by Thomas is like low friction for me, right?
How did you get an SpO2 of 96 when you're at 8,000 feet?
So I sleep with oxygen.
Okay.
So I'm in Breck, anybody who's not watching. And so, okay, so now this is what Thomas said to me. So I had said, this was my plan on Sunday, was to do a big rye, which he calls an A. We call it either A plus A or A minus. And A plus this would be the mountain bike ride, 2 hours, 45 minutes to 3 hours, 15. So somewhere around 2,500 vertical feet of climbing, mostly aerobic. He tells me max cap out my heart rate, average heart rate 122, tells me what to eat, like make sure I'm doing all these things, tells me basically like, here's what you need to do if you start to not feel good. I have a hamstring injury, right? He knows all of this. And so this is what he does. Okay. So I'm going to pause for a second and go back to Thomas because now I want to make everybody feel as excited as I do about my ride. So I have actually teed up a small bit of footage here. I'm so proud of myself right now. I actually have some mountain bike video for everybody. Come on now. Where did it go? Did it go away? Here we go. Darn it. There's like a really good clip here that I wanted everybody to see. Here it is. Give me 1 second. Apparently I just might have shut it, but I'm going to show this one. This is the downhill. So maybe I wasn't meant to show the uphill, but I am going to find that clip in a second. So here is this. So this is my downhill portion. Just a little teaser for everybody.
Sooner or later, it's going to show.
Yeah. I don't know how you make it faster. Here we go. I can make it faster, right? There's the mountains. There. Now I'm going to go faster.
And what does that give you, the picture? Other than the fact that I think you're about to hit the trees?
I just wanted to scare you, really. I want people to be able to see the scenery. Look how pretty that is.
It's very pretty.
Like, some people wanted to see the scenery of what I mountain bike. So when I talk about mountain biking, this helps people understand, like, this is maybe where I'm out mountain biking, and that mountain biking is fun and it's pretty and you should do it. You should try it. Okay. So there's a little of that. The other thing I wanted to show is this one really pretty view that I have, but that seems to have gone away. Okay. So then we're stop sharing. Now, let me go back to after that ride. So now let's go back to what Thomas had to say and how I have to screenshot things and why I'm being whiny for Andy. I'm just giving you a hard time, Andy. Just want to show what a super user I am of my Garmin now, although I still can't use it properly, just so everybody knows. I was looking at it this morning. Okay, so then I went and did that mountain bike ride. So, and here you go. What he did tell me, this is important, is he said, Thomas did say before I rode, I did not have your Garmin actual load from yesterday or today. So he made the, what to do, but I have to make some decisions. Okay. So then I actually told him I'm really looking at more of an A- ride, not an A+ ride. So this was my target, 2.5 hours on the bike, couple thousand vertical feet, blah, 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 blah. So here's my ride. So let's see if I don't know if I do that. Yeah, you guys can see it better, right? So this was a big ride. So I actually spent almost 30 minutes in zone 5. I spent 48 minutes in zone 4, an hour in zone 3. I typically in the mountains like to play in zone 3 and 4. I'm not a big fan of zone 2, even though as a perimenopausal woman, I should like it. And there's that. So that's what I sent him. And then this was my vertical. So big climb up front, had some fun rolling down, then another climb. By the way, this climb is way nastier than it looks here. It's a horrible climb. And then had fun coming down. And then this was another important piece, which was my stamina. So this is what Garmin does a nice job of, is basically I started at 100% and I ended at 32. And it's kind of interesting, right, to see that after I did that first big climb, my stamina pretty much kind of got drained and then just kind of stayed pretty steady state for that period of time. So really useful tool, but I have to take screenshots in Garmin Connect and then upload them. And then this is what Tom's had to say. That was a big successful ride and a real load. And then what he says is like, but physiologically said, longest ride plus total ascent, closer to an A-, edging into an A. But the 5 aerobic effect is the giant red stamp, which I didn't show. Then tells me tonight, I love this. No extra walk because the legs feel okay. Early sleep is the workout now. And then Thursday is still alive because my plan is to do a big ride tomorrow. Thursday is still alive, but today raise the price. To keep Thursday possible, Monday has to absorb. Tuesday cannot become, I feel fine, let's test the engine, which by the way was my plan, but I didn't do it because it's smoke. We'll use tomorrow's HORA plus tissue report before deciding whether Tuesday is moderate or controlled recovery. Pretty wild, right? And then this is today. You're being quiet.
What do you want me to say?
I don't know. You have anything to add to any of this?
Well, I think that what are we doing here? We have OpenClaw running.
Yep.
With agents. You've trained Thomas. Positive I did, but you educated Thomas a little bit what you want to do on your health. And you are running Insight Telegram here talking to Thomas, who's on OpenClaw, and your OpenClaw is running on your Mac, your little Mac Mini, and is acting as your personal agent and second brain for your training.
Correct. And my health.
For the most part, it understands the domain of your health and has that memory, but it's principally using the back end of it is principally using OpenAI. Is that what you're on?
Yeah, I switched it over. I want to put it into Claude because I like Claude better for health, but I haven't had time to do that.
But you're using OpenAI Opus 5 to act as sort of the back end of this. So you could get some of the same experience if you're in not Opus, so Sol 5.6 or whatever.
Yeah. You could do, I was doing a Claude project. I had a Claude project forever and outgrew it because the screenshot issue. You start taking, conversations max out at screenshots, and they also don't like they don't like that in the project file. So it became too much friction to be able to use a project for this type of work. And I ultimately went to this. But it's super helpful, right? Because now I'm planning for tomorrow. This is, I did a bunch of hiking this morning, and, this is what he said. You nailed the intensity and exceeded the conservative duration prescription. So I'd call it C plus B minus. But this is important for me to hear. With 1,300 plus feet of climbing, it's a real musculoskeletal and nervous system input on a short fragmented sleep day. So no more cardio today beyond normal walking, and watch the hamstring. So, I am sharing this to show people that this is in existence today. And like for healthcare, we act as though we have control over in the healthcare industry. Health system leaders still talk to me, C-suite leaders still talk to me and say, well, it's if there's real control over this, but this is all out there for people. And this is what we can build with. And I guess in the land of the misfit toys, the reason I wanted to bring this back to the land of the misfit toys is my next step with this when I get back is to make a much more robust health context library. I'm doing blood work now, right? I did the big hormone panel. I'm going to put all that in there. Robert Ferguson and I, nutrition, he and I had another very nice conversation last week. He's got an app now that he's going to have you and I look at. I'm probably going to be betaing that app. I have basically a biomarker sort of objective. I just did my hormones, like I said, and all of that's going to get fed into this along with the 15 years of health data that's already there. And I'm going to move this back over into Claude because I trust Anthropic better with the health data, with giving me information. And I do want to start trying to tap into clinicians that are more forward leaning and that are willing to, like Adam Carew, for example. I know he's very much invested in, we have to figure out how to tap into AI for our patients. But I think this is our way out of this conundrum around N of one personalized medicine not being scalable. It is entirely scalable, I believe now. If I can do this on my own, and I have zero technical knowledge, zero. The only technical knowledge I have is from anything that I've managed to you've managed to send me through the wavelengths. So, so if I can do this, then it's entirely, this is the thing. But the other thing, you and I talked about this morning, is very important, is I want to have a beta of the app, the HealthSpan app, to have our subscribers, our network, be able to, on the consumer side, be able to start to engage in, I ate Plant Strong, I wore a CGM, I went and I'm wearing an ultra-human ring, and I put my data in HealthX, right? We're all linked up, and here's what I'm now learning about my body. And that way the food company, I want Plant Strong to be able to get that in the feedback loop. I want the CPG, the ingredient, I want, and now this isn't NIH level data, but it is directional feedback loop that doesn't exist today that needs to start to get built.
Well, it's data that doesn't exist. If we can go back to the land of the misfit toys, the undiagnosed refractory patient. There are 25 to 65 million of those people. One of the reasons why there's so much range is because nobody really captures the data. No one's really recording the data that says, I had a patient that show up and I couldn't diagnose them and they still have disease that I can't diagnose. That's not like a record inside of my chart that's recorded, and there really is not any kind of longitudinal record of that. When you go back to NIH has really spent the last, ever since AIDS, for the most part, moving more and more towards concentrating all its work on genetics, Human Genome Project, and all that staging. And so, 48 billion out of 50 billion in the NIH's research budget is really spent on, acute disease, some chronic, nothing really on nutrition,
Nope.
nothing major, and not much in terms of understanding the longitudinal data sets. Now, we certainly are saying that Alicia Jackson over at ARPA-H is starting to let some contracts out where, for example, Holobiome and Alden Scientific are going to do a longitudinal control panel of around 6,000 patients to understand your microbiome intersection with your proteomics. That's new ground.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not a new study. I mean, it's probably been done somewhere for N of 100, not N of 6,000. And so the advantage is we're in the early days of gathering data, so it doesn't have to be NIH level data because we don't even have the span nailed down. And to some degree, you get these signals from this information that can help sort of set some boundaries for figuring things out. I was reminded in a conversation that, we figured out ulcers were caused by bacteria in 1995. And even then, that was a controversial thing. People didn't believe it. And the guy who did it infected himself with H. pylori to prove it. A very unethical way to do a study. But he proved his point. But for 200 years, if you go back to history, maybe even longer, you can see people making comments, doctors and other people, that attributed ulcers to bacteria. Even before we knew what bacteria was, they attributed it to the proxy of what is bacteria. And so we have all these observations that touch around things. So I think the gold mine in the Aura data and the Garmin data may be a accelerant to the 65 million people that have malady.
I don't know how it isn't. I don't know how it isn't. And I guess I am so convinced of that now after engaging with my own data in such an overly simplified manner. It doesn't look it because that's just me. I don't do anything, it's just everything I do has to look complicated. And that's why Thomas talks to me the way that he does, is I want the details, right? But like my dad, I saw my dad pop up here in the audience, and I'm hoping he's listening. My dad doesn't want all that information, right? But I could spin up something for my dad. I could throw an Aura ring on him, and I could say, okay, what are the couple of things that you want to be reminded of in the morning that's helpful for you about your health, right? And to your point, use the exact same hardware, data collection, right? I mean, data collection is coming under fire right now, like with remote patient monitoring, for example. And then there's a lot, it's coming under fire of, should we be measuring all of this data, right? Do people even need to know all of this data about themselves? There's a lot of debate around that. And I've seen the power of having this context library. Like I wrote my hormone piece this morning, which I'll go back to, and I'll go back to my dad in a second, and my point at the end, I have a sort of action items in that piece for people, like do this, this, this. And I put in there, start downloading all of your health data. Go out onto my chart, all the places that you've gone, download the data, get the PDFs, get the chart notes, go on to LabCorp, go on to Quest, get all of the data into a folder. I didn't even tell people to go set up an AI folder yet. Just have all of your data. That is your health context library. And basically what we've never done for people, we never could figure out the big word interoperability. We basically could never get past our own HIPAA concerns and, proprietary ways amongst the healthcare system to break down the walls for people to have a full context library of their health that could be accessed by anybody. But AI is that. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, AI is the ultimate interoperability. And so I do think Amy Gleason over at CMS is doing a great job of breaking down all the walls for consumers. She's doing an amazing job with that. But in the meantime, we can all be going out there getting data. And I think we need to do that, because I think, like, going back to my dad for a second, there are certain things that I believe that if he saw it, and maybe he doesn't want to see it every day, maybe he just wants to sit down on Saturdays and talk with Thomas, right?
Well, the normal thing is humans operated for a long time, never being bothered with this. Pathogens would come along every now and then, kill them off, or they'd break a bone and die. And there were things that killed them that we know how to not have you not die from a broken bone. So we shouldn't have to do this. So I don't know the degree that you should do it, but I do know that there are people that get sick that would like treatment. And right now, 65 million of them aren't getting it, refractory. They're not getting treatment of a suitable sense. And that is an opportunity for people in healthcare to move away from chronic disease over to solve that. And we likely will need more data, longitudinal, to figure that out. And so that's all good. What I think we should be designing for is your dad doesn't even have to think about it. That the food is principally healthy for him. He doesn't have to worry about it. Just like we think about safety. We've had this recently with the outbreak where people are like, oh, well, the outbreak is all somebody's fault. They're trying to blame somebody for the outbreak. It's like, no, it's a pathogen in nature that sometimes gets ahead of us. But we do have food standards that work to try to stop that. In some way, I don't know why we wouldn't have effective health standards that guide people to say, keen on some new regulatory framework, but something that sort of says, look, it's just not great for you. And you should know that. You can make whatever decision you want, but we should just sort of remind you, without you having to look at all the details in this label, this thing's not the greatest thing for you.
Okay. So Kelly Springer is doing that right now. So she has, other people have done this. It's not, but still, we were talking about on Tuesday on Unprocessed and Unfiltered, which is, she was at a food, it's kind of like what at Nourishing Change, where I told you there were all those like 200 startup brands that were all really, really nutrient dense, truly healthy for you, not just healthy for you claims. And now I talked to a number of them about doing something with our subscriber base to be able to start to actually prove that in hard data, beyond just an influencer saying it. But in that discussion, Kelly was at this other thing very similar with food brands. And there was two particular companies that she just, as a dietitian, was like, this is amazing. And so they are going to do a Kelly's Choice approved stamp on their food. So like the food brand, like we could have a Food is Health stamp, stamp of approval, which is, and I know your point is much deeper than that, which is that, you walk in and produce is red, yellow, green.
Well, but I think it's reasonable to think. So again, there are people animated about the recent outbreak and have suggested that FDA has undertaken some changes that caused the outbreak. I don't know if that's true, but our food safety in the United States is really a product of various things we put in over time that says, don't leave food out, do these things, all these various practices, whatever. So as we think about in the extreme, all food should be perfect and it should never cause trouble, and you should not have to worry when you walk in the store. That's the extreme, maybe not. The midpoint is a proxy for it's safe. And on the food safety side, I think we've got a pretty good proxy in terms of what FDA and EPA do in terms of the basics there. In terms of health, not all 320 million Americans are the same. And then while it may not be N of 1, it could be N of 10,000 people or N of 500,000 people that maybe would be better off eating one way or the other way. And that's where an influencer comes in. People are very critical of influencers, but influencers, the function of the influencer is not any really different than a brand of, you eat Kellogg's cereal because you know that if you eat Kellogg's cereal, it's not going to have the whatever that virus was that everybody's worried, but not the virus. It's it's not
Parasite?
a virus, parasite. So you're pretty sure that if you buy Kellogg's cereal, it's not going to have any parasites in it. That's a plus of processed food. Is they generally are pretty clear about what's in their food. So influencers are an important branding where, like Kraft or like General Mills, in which somebody says, I've looked at all the data on this and I can generally give you a stamp of approval that says, and as far as I'm concerned, it's good for you. Now, some people may say, oh, well, that influencer's goofy or they believe in magic potion or whatever, but that's the main means by which we make decisions. We find people that we trust. They give us, that's how early majority makes a decision. And there's a certain amount of this where you're clearly an early adopter. But the next crowd needs to hear Alan say, oh, I have found that this product is good. And then that next crowd will do it because they've listened to you on a podcast and they trust you. This is all pretty standard stuff in terms of what we have to do, but it is what we have to do. And I would imagine that the food system at some level, we should embrace the influencers. They're not perfect.
But I think this is where I'm asking for more, which is the connectivity of people having a place to be able to objectively see the movement in their health data.
I wonder if Tommy could be an influencer.
Thomas could be an influencer.
Should we give him a social channel?
We could give him a social channel, but I mean, why? Why it would be me?
Would we have to pay him extra, or would we have to give him a discount?
I think Thomas is paid for. I fund Thomas, so we're okay.
What does Thomas think he get paid? If Thomas wanted to get paid,
ask him.
what would he want?
We could ask Thomas what he has to say. How much should you get paid, Thomas? That would be pretty funny to see what he had to say. I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that to try to break these up.
He'd be willing to work for free. There'd probably be, if we were in New York, he'd probably get taxed.
Probably. Yeah.
Did you see in New York, if you go to the automatic checkout lane, they want you to they reduce the food by 10% in cost?
No, I didn't see that. So I said, Thomas, Carter wants to know how much should we pay you for your role as my health coach? See what he has to say. Maybe he'll give us a funny answer. But as I wait for that fun response to come back, I don't know if Joe is still here. So Joe is a longtime family friend of ours since my son was a toddler, and he now towers over us at almost 6 foot tall at the age of 17. And Joe's on here, and I'd be curious if Joe has the ability to weigh in what she would want in some sort of a health coach like what I built with Thomas, where you're interacting with something that isn't a human, but it is something that's tapping into your health data. And I think there is a fear. This is still, there is a big, and I'm not saying Joe has this fear, but there is a big barrier of people fearing their data being out in public for certain. And I think, that's part of why I did the health agent the way I did is if I did build this as if I was a developer, I could technically lock my health data technically sits on a Mac Mini, as you said, in my house. It's not on Claude anymore. So this context library that I'm building that is being pulled from is not out on Claude now or on OpenAI. Now, the interface back and forth, that's different, but to me, that's temporary, right? Like you can build in a manner where it's not, throwing all of that data out there. But I think it's really important. I mean, I think the other piece about this is just maybe we can spend a couple minutes, and then I do think we should hit the news a little bit. But okay, let's see what Thomas had to say. He did come back to answer my question. Here we go. I'd answer Carter with a clean monthly retainer number, not hourly. For what I'm doing, this is classic. For what I'm doing, daily training, recovery, interpretation, travel, sleep adjustment, injury risk guardrails, food, exercise planning, and quick tactical coaching, I've framed it as this. Thomas is functioning as a daily health coaching and recovery planning layer, interpreting my raw sleep training data, helping adjust exercise load, watching injury risk, and giving practical day-by-day guidance. A fair starting point would be $500 a month for ongoing support, with understanding that this is coaching, behavioral support, not medical care. If he wants a range, I'd say $300 to $750 a month, depending on expected intensity. For your actual use pattern, $500 feels fair and not silly. If it becomes multiple deep dives plus meal planning, travel protocols, injury, then it would be $750 to $1,000. Important caveat, I'd avoid calling it medical advice or anything clinician-like. Health coach, recovery coach, training, load support is cleaner. There's so much there to unpack, is there not?
I don't even know what to do with it. You should ask him what he's going to spend the money on when he starts making it. And do we have to give him a W-2?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that because that would be too much fun. You and I have too much fun going down that rabbit hole. People are not here to see what we can get I don't know. Maybe they are here to see what I can get my self-built AI agent to tell me that he would spend his money on. Anyways, so let's shift this a little bit into, again, I'm going to take it over to my health data. I'm not picking on you today. So, and part of this is, I will be honest, you and I went to Aspen mid-June, right? It's about a month and a half ago. And we had been, as we had been joking, sleeping on the factory floor. And Aspen was just like this, it was like the climax of that. Just not sleeping much. I think I do want to give a little preview of HIAC, because that was something that you particularly have been just focused on getting built. And Aspen, we had time together in the early mornings to work on this. And so I really, I realized that my health was not as high of a priority as it needed to be. And a lot of people, I've realized in this space, a lot of people do see me as an example of somebody who tries to practice what I preach. And so I do think it's important to be honest with people and say, like, look, I did let my sleep slide. I did let my fitness level slide. I like cookies. I like sweets. But for the most part, I know how to keep that box fairly safe so I'm not gaining 40 pounds. But I definitely am not at the height of my healthiest, at least in mid-June. And so I really said to myself, I can't let this continue. Like, I've been at this, you and I together collectively, we've both been at this for decades, or well over a decade in this space, but together collectively, we've been teamed up for, 2.5 years, going on 3. And although it's a marathon, I don't want to kill myself doing this. And so I have really set about to start to dive into health. And so one of those lanes we just looked at, which was endurance, while I'm out here in Colorado, which tomorrow is my last day. School starts for my son on Monday. He will be a senior. My daughter will be a senior in college. So I have a senior in high school, senior in college. And so I really wanted to try and suck the lifeblood out of endurance while I was out here. And then strength hits next week. But on top of that, there are hormones for us. And so, as you know, I dove into that. And again, land of the misfit toys. So do you know what standard of care is for somebody of my age? I'll be 54 in a week, in a couple of days. Do you know what standard of care is for that? What's that?
Whine to your husband and be cranky?
That's not standard of care, but that's typically what happens. You're onto it. So you go to the OBGYN or to the primary care doctor and you say, I don't know what's going on here, but things are all over the map. Or in my case, I have a family member that, has vascular dementia who basically had an early hysterectomy that then prompted early menopause and no hormone replacement. And now we've got severe early cognitive decline. And there is a lot of research starting to surface saying that estrogen in particular is a hormone you don't want to mess around with when it comes to brain health, and progesterone. And that hormonal balance for women is particularly important for, it's neuroprotective. And so and unfortunately there was as the women's health study was a massive body of data, and it became completely dismissed over some things that were really incorrectly interpreted. And we just did this knee-jerk reaction and basically said, no more hormones. It's too scary, causes cancer. We're done. And not only did we do that, we stopped researching it. And so now my generation is like, hey, wait a minute. I'm not okay with what's happening to my mom over there. What's going on? And so doctors like Dr. Lisa Mosconi have really taken the leadership role in this and, saying, and I think what's important here is, anybody that's on here that's saying, hey, I'm joining because this is food is health. This is all related, right? Is your hormones are related to your metabolic health, are related to, which then gets into insulin sensitivity. I mean, it's all interrelated, this whole thing. And so you have to understand all of it, right?
Do you, or what's your action next? I mean, I think most people don't have.
Well, so standard of care is you go get your blood drawn one day in a month. A cycle that.
And then what do? They take that, they look at your hormone count and give you some Premarin?
So a lot of what's happening right now is you go, if you're lucky, someone tells you what day of the month in a cycle that you should go, which is typically the 5th day. But again, the 5th day is what, right? It's supposed to be the 5th day of a 28-day cycle. Well, if you've got a 21-day cycle, what is the 5th day? If your cycle ranges from 18 days to 30 days, what day do you go? Right? And then that one magical day is meant to tell you what's wrong or right with your hormones. So I wasn't okay with that. And I researched and I found what's called the Dutch panel, which is not FDA. It's an endocrinologist won't recognize it because they use urine and not blood. There's a lot of disclosures around it. There's no evil with it. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just not recognized. And it gave me a very different picture. And interestingly enough, it wasn't a completely different picture than what I suspected, because when I have gone and gotten it drawn, look, here, this will put it into perspective for people, anybody who can see the screen. I think this is super helpful to see is, I did go in and pull all of my previous, this is not my Dutch panel. This is all of the blood draws that I've had, right, previously to try and understand. Look at this. So let's see if I can zoom in on this. Yeah. See this? This is from 2018 to 2026, my estradiol measurement. Do you see these numbers?
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that, Carter? Like,
I have
nothing.
no idea.
Right. And this is what we're left with. Like, this is what we're supposed to figure out. So what typically happens is, the assumption is made that based on your cycle, based on everything, that your estrogen's low and you're given estrogen. And in my case, it's the opposite. I don't have enough progesterone. But
So it's sort of like giving people leeches to
yeah,
bloodlet.
I mean, that's what
Just
we're left with as women. And so then the other piece, I'm just going to complain for a minute, is what did I have to do? I had to pee on a friggin' piece of paper for almost the whole month and then freeze said pieces of paper in a bag because you have to keep them frozen after 48 hours to then mail it off. And then I had to like spit on things one particular day and you couldn't eat. I mean, it's just awful. As a woman, you're like, and it took me 3 months to be able to do the test because I travel so much that I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have these.
So you do that test, and then it tells you that you're low in progesterone. And
it actually told me what, it actually gave me a whole picture. Of
what measures you should take, and is that?
Yeah, I'm going to show you what it did. But this is where.
And how do you know that that's the right thing? Did they validate it?
Well, what does validate mean? Tell me what that means.
I mean, did they take 100 patients and we gave you this recommendation and we're better?
No, they don't give you a recommendation. They just tell you what the data says. So like it gives you a cycle map. So this was the actual report. This is one of them. You see this okay? Or I need to like...
Yeah, I think you're fine.
So I'm purple and pink and the gray are the reference. And so what's important here is, and there's more data below, but so what you can see is I'm fine on estrogen. I'm more than fine. I even have this secondary surge, which come to find out, a lot of perimenopausal women have this. So I bounce around like this, plenty of estrogen. I kind of plummet down here and I plummet down here. But the rest of the month, I'm okay. But then you come down here to my progesterone and, I barely make it up into the range right up here. But in relation to estrogen, that's a problem because these are supposed to be in balance. Like these are supposed to have a correlation. If I'm high on estrogen, my progesterone should be more at the high end of the cycle to be balancing off that estrogen. And there's more data in here, but that's really important data to know. So what was more important for me to understand was that I need progesterone probably more than I need to worry about the estrogen. And then the other report that they gave me was around my androgens, which was super interesting. Let's see, I think this is it. No, where did I put it? Here it is.
Why did evolution make you go through this?
I don't know. I mean, some people say because I ate an apple. I don't know. Whether or not that's right. Okay. So here is, I'll zoom in just a little bit more. So here you go. This kind of tells you, so this is where the balance starts to show up. But here's what's really interesting is my androgens are horrible. And then my cortisol levels, which I already knew, I've been diagnosed previously with having adrenal insufficiency. But, and not great, right? Metabolized is fine, but my saliva is anyways, there's a lot going on here. But bottom line, I've got an androgen problem. Like my testosterone is like at the very bottom of the chart. And so again, part of this picture of how do you regulate as a female where hormones are particularly important to metabolic clearance, to function, to brain. We don't know any of this. This is the great thing. It's not a great thing. Is that androgen stuff? Nobody has any research on it. Nobody's around to say, oh, this is what could happen. We haven't looked into it for women. We don't research it. I'm done.
Well, unlisted toys, undiagnosed refractory.
Right.
We're busy doing acute disease and certain points of chronic disease.
So how do we, again, so this notion that we shouldn't allow, that it's wasteful. This is where I have a hard time, and I want you to push back. How do we differentiate that people wanting agency with their health data so that they understand how to be the healthiest version of themselves? Is it the insurance debate? This is what I've been thinking a lot about. Is the real trick here not that people shouldn't have the data, it's who pays for someone to get the data, right? Like, should my insurance company pay? See, and this is where, unfortunately, we don't have a model.
You're going to trigger the entrepreneur libertarian in me. I think that the insurance company, the fact that somebody is saying who's going to pay for it and I need to be reimbursed before I take a positive action is a dysfunctional market.
Agreed.
And I think there are enough cash pay early adopters out there. And the value of that cash pay early adopter is to some degree shift this. I mean, there are a bunch of things on X over the weekend around how stupid it is, and Huberman sort of fired it up, but how stupid it is that people take MRIs. It's an overdiagnostic. $3,000 makes no sense. And everybody was shitting on the idea of MRIs.
Okay.
For whatever reason. Well, you and I both done MRIs, and it was interesting. I don't know that I would pay $3,500 for it, but there's technology coming out of Stanford that's going to lower the cost of an MRI probably below $1,000, if not $400.
Okay.
We're starting to learn with the AI models because we are taking a lot of healthy people data. We didn't, just got to remember the MRIs. When you normally take an MRI, there's an order that says, I think this person has this problem in their knee, study that. And then they look at it and they say, do or don't have that problem in the knee. They really haven't spent a whole lot of time in that same scan looking at the healthy part of your tissue and how that reflects. So we're now gathering more healthy data. So that means, one, we're going to have the core technology of an MRI is coming down. And the next step is we're going to, with more healthy people data in the data sets, we can come up with better error correcting on automated reads. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to be talking about $200 MRI with 10x the diagnostic accuracy.
Yep.
And what will that look like? Now, the people who are talking about you shouldn't be doing this, I don't know why they're saying it. Are they saying we shouldn't do it because it costs $3,500? Are they saying it because they don't want you to know the information?
Well,
they don't think you should have the information, or it's going to turn you into a hypochondriac. And so there's a whole pile of crap there that we need to get right with, in which we say, patients do find this helpful. Patients don't find this helpful. And the thing is we came out of the factory trained to understand, as much as everybody else wants to cut the misinformation and stop us from seeing, we've got 350,000 years of human evolution that have trained us to understand signal from noise. Our brains are incredibly well wired. We don't need somebody else stepping in and telling us how to shift signal to noise. And so there are early adopters. They're the gift. What investment does every startup need? Customers, because customers provide that capital and signal to make a good product. So what does that all mean? It means a bunch of people are going to spend money on hormones like you and whatever this thing costs, $1,000 to do the test. And you're going to conclude some things. And then there's going to be another generation of it that comes out at $400 and another generation that comes out at $100. And then someone's going to generalize the data because now they have better data sets. And then the whole problem is going to become 1/10 as hard. And that is in every other part of technology. That is how, look at AI. We've now got open weight models. Nobody was talking about open weight models 2 years ago. And so people are talking about 3 months ago, people were saying, let's ban people's access to Mythos grade AI. And meanwhile, the open weight models have closed half the gap and are going to come out. So it's coming out sooner or later.
Well, so let's spend the last 15 minutes sort of talking this through. Early adopter, we talked about doing this ahead of time. So let's talk about the new bridge program and Elevate. Let's talk about Elevate. Right? We talked about this. You want to tee this up? You want me to tee this up?
Yeah, I'll jump to the bone here. You submitted, you and a team, and please give the details in a moment, put together an Elevate bid to CMS or whatever to get them to fund longitudinal investigation in how to deliver better care. We happened to stumble across the thought of a commercial payer who has said that he spends about $3 million a year trying to improve his employee base.
Well, he's more than a payer. He's a healthcare delivery system that's self-insured. And
self-insured. He's saying I've got about $3 million that I'm spending on trying to get my people healthy and it's not working. So the conversation we had this morning was, well, why don't we just take the Elevate grant put together in that team, and why don't we offer it to self-pay providers, self-pay, whatever they're called, self-pay customers, and disintermediate the other solution and help them orchestrate a newer solution. We don't necessarily have to wait. We want the Elevate grant because that adds some credibility. There's no reason why we can't take that same footprint of a plan and take it to other people and help them if they're ready to be early adopters. And then if we get 4, 5, 10 of those, now all of a sudden we've got, a match set and we can prove something.
Yes. So for anyone watching, it is a concept here, is not rocket science, but we've put the whole thing together. We have all the parts assembled and it's ready to go and we can tweak it. And so basically what it is it's the missing bolt-on of lifestyle medicine, engagement, agency, knowledge, behavior change, all of that goes along with GLP-1s. And the impetus of it was, we were together in Nashville, a group of us, and I was pushing really hard on the Access program, which is more of the tech. To me, it's the reusable rocket, and I still haven't given up on that, but it's, $40, $50 of outcomes-based payments per beneficiary per month, which is a very low amount in healthcare's minds. But under original Medicare, it's reimbursable for lifestyle, right? And for remote patient monitoring, all these things. So my point was, okay, well, there's a missing gap right now. Seniors are getting GLP-1s and they're not being offered. Sometimes they're getting gaslit because they've got primary care physicians that are scared that they're scared that the risk of frailty, sarcopenia, things like that outweighs the benefit of the weight loss, right? And the metabolic improvement. I ran into this to some extent with my mom, a couple of years ago with an endocrinologist, where she was more concerned, instead of bringing my mom's blood sugar down below 7 so that she was pre-diabetic again, she wouldn't let us do that because she was more concerned that my mom would have episodes of hypoglycemia that would cause her to fall and potentially break a hip. And I was like, seriously? Like, we're literally not going to let my mom get back into metabolic regulation because of a risk of a fall. My mom was active at that point. You know what I mean? So we've said, look, we can actually offer that. We have it. It's designed. And so that's what I want to do. And then I want to be able to plug in, to your point. So anybody who's here is interested in this. The other thing I really want to do is use it. So we've already created PCOS.com, which I need to kind of finalize. The idea is that this becomes a first derivative of System C, and we can bolt other things onto it. So the CPG company, like if a Plant Strong wants to come and say, look, we want to make sure that people that are in this program that's billable through Medicare, we just want them to know about this food, right? They can buy it. Maybe we give them a discount, maybe not, but like, we just want them to be aware. And then we have this first derivative that allows us to offer the right solutions, not just who's paid us to offer the solution. Like you and I both feel very strongly about this, is we're not doing this to get media, to get endorsements and sponsorships. That's the opposite. We want to put together a system that's designed to where health outcomes are at the center of everything. And it improves people's health, it improves their lives, it improves their health span.
Well, so we have an approach with a bunch of people that we found to say, let's help you with weight loss and then put the other adjunctive therapy into it so that it persists. The weight loss persists after you tail off. So if you're self-insured and have a employee base of some size that you're using GLP-1 on, we should talk about taking the same proposal that we shared with CMS.
CMS, yeah.
And implement it, tailor it to implement it and augment what hopefully will win from CMS.
Well, we already have one. I think we have all the pieces of the puzzle. We could obviously make the puzzle more robust if we want. There are more options we can plug onto it. Yeah, and then to your point this morning is, and you've just said it, but I'll repeat it, is it would be great to have a group of multiple employers that are all trying to, right? And then they can be sharing insights together and designing this together, and maybe they each tweak it slightly, but then they can learn from each other.
You can do it however, and they've got a pool of early adopters, and we have a sense of providers. It becomes a bit of a system integration function, which is what you need to do. I mean, the technology accelerates when the 6, 7, 10, 15, 20 players in the marketplace start to finally realize how they can work together in an effective way to solve a problem, and off it goes at that point. And so we should be doing that. We've got 25,000 daily readers. There are a community of people out there that can touch their organizations. And, we'll get Andy. Garmin may not be big enough, but why don't we do it with Garmin?
Garmin's big enough. Garmin's bigger than the healthcare entity, I think. Then, yeah, I mean, I think we could totally say, Andy, let's experiment with something. So I did want to do kind of so on that front, we have to get people together, right? We have to have this network integration layer. We have Crescenia, we have HIAC, and I thought we've got 5 minutes left. I think it might be cool I can do a quick demo of the research function in HIAC. I just want people to understand what we've built. And
if you think you can do a demo that works, it's these demos always. What's the pressure?
No, because I know I did it this morning and it worked, and I know what we can do. So I'm going to share the dashboard. So you want to tell people about HIAC real quick, and then I'll do a quick research thing.
What our observation is that PitchBook tells you what startups are doing in what sector. I thought, well, we've got a thing called System C, and then we have people building to System C. How do we create a system like PitchBook that gives users an understanding of who is or isn't helping progress System C? And how do I work with them? And then we sort of extended that a bit to basically say, if we're building System C, there are all these Lego blocks of change. So we're building up System C out of a bunch of little Lego blocks, and a Lego block could be, how do we come up with alternate sugars? Or it could be, how do we execute GLP-1 effectively so that there's persistence in weight loss? Or, how do we prove that food as medicine is good? There are all these little building blocks that if you assemble them together, chronic disease goes away. So what this is in a sense, it's an application like PitchBook that says, here are all the people working in the space, here are their names, here are the things they're working on. That's one part. The second part is something we call builds. And that says, there's this build, we're going to, let's get the clinical evidence for this medicine. And then there may be people involved in that build. What we've done is we've built an ingest engine that lets anybody involved in that build to suck in all the data and the attributes and the conversations they're having to really create a common CRM of sorts in which we're all working on this thing collectively across the supply chain. We're all working around this build together, and we have our own little cohort of information that lets us, in a sense, use this tool as our second brain for our organization. And I don't know if I've explained it well, but essentially what we're trying to do is drive down. So it's a little bit PitchBook, it's a little bit of a CRM, and it's a little bit of a sort of a project inside. The build isn't much, is similar to like a project inside Claude, in which you're saying we're working around this one thing to build out a change that has a measurable impact on accelerating System C.
Do you have any articles today that came across that you found?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Nothing came in your inbox?
Why don't you use the example you have? If you have an example, use the one you have. I don't want to do anything dynamically.
Okay. Let's see. I will use. I was hoping somebody would drop a article for me. I said, does anybody have it? Let's see. Let me do this. I'll use one that's already in here that I know went fine.
You will notice it's got 64,000 companies in it and 71,000 people. We've built this on top of, we've built a corpus that I select of, after looking at 6,000 companies, of the network of people around the food as health space. And we sort of are building this on top of that layer.
So this is what I think is super cool when you do this. So there's a research function. I'm going to put an article. Hopefully this works. This one. This is just a link somebody sent me for a piece. And I'm pasting it, and there's possibility that the link is wrong. But somebody just sent me an article the other day.
Stuck? See, it's wrong with that one. I don't know if it's stuck. You've got me in new territory.
Here. I have it. So this was an article somebody sent me to read. All I did was drop the link in the research. And it went through and basically gave me a quick summary, right? Ahead of the midterm elections, Congress advanced several healthcare bills, including bipartisan Medicare physician for pay reform, Medicare Advantage transparency, right? These are the different things, okay? And then down here, once I've done that, I can log the article. It already tags the things that we should be paying attention to in our network. Again, this is all about System C. It then pulls out all of the organizations, all the companies that were cited in the article that it has. And then it, in this case, because I've already put this article in, it has already added. So it's just saying, do you want me to link this article to these organizations? So all of these organizations are now in HIAC with links, right? And then I could also put a company in here. And so, for example, I could put in here, iSelect. I could search it and it gives me the option of adding iSelect. So that if I could tag it to me, I could tag it to another company. Then it actually gives me people. This is the part that I think is super cool. Is these are all of the people that were cited in the article. And when the email for this person exists in HIAC, I've linked this to my email and I can hit create. It'll allow me to start to create an email to people. I can add people to it. So if I think this article relates, so for example, the person that sent it to me, I attributed this article back to him. He was already in HIAC, and then it gave me signal claims, right? So these are all signal claims that I can keep or get rid of and store. I can then I hit commit to HIAC. Say commit to HIAC. And then this is the cool part. Then, right? It's like, well, what the hell does this mean to me at System C? So then I click on synthesize, and you guys will see what it does. It actually synthesizes these signals in relation to System C. So it takes the framework and the language that we've built that people really like to use these days. It's been helpful, I think, for folks to be able to communicate about a new market that doesn't exist yet. And so this is entirely built to synthesize and process that. And then down here, while we're letting it process, you can research all these companies, all these people, if you want. You can research them on the webs. And this is what I was talking about. So it is actually linked to my email, and it will draft an email to this person that I can then go and modify, but it gives me a starting point that I can reach out to this person and reference this article. The other cool feature in here that's down here is Wilson. So I can click on this and it takes me directly to Wilson, who's the AI agent in here. I'm still a little hurt that Mimi and Uni aren't in here, but I think they'll have a place someday. But nonetheless, I can then go in directly into Wilson and communicate. So here's what this means. So you guys saw I said hit synthesize. So here we go. And this is really important. What we learned. Congress is drafting a legislative vehicle for outcomes-based primary care. That's a big signal for System C. Outcomes-based payments matter. MA plans may soon be forced to disclose what share actually goes to patient care. That's a tailwind and a headwind, right? Depending on which way you're looking at it. Voter anxiety, it pulls up. Then opportunities. It's actually going to give us these opportunities. AFP and PMPM pilot design for proof point. It linked that in because it knows what AFP is doing. And then this is really cool. This I love is the build. So if everybody recalls, on the dashboard page, we had a build for bridge balance that we're working on actively. It then comes in and says, should this pilot be part of bridge? Because I think it matters. So I could say here, I already know these guys. So I could say add as prospect into the build. So then we could arguably invite them into our build on here. So for people that are engaging with Crusonia and they're part of the ecosystem, they're a Crusonian, they have a seat, they have a license, they can then be communicating and working on that. And then there's worth watching, and then risks and counter piece. But it's brilliant, Carter. You did an amazing job.
Well, it's a pretty cool demo. I've never seen the demo. I wrote the whole thing and you just demoed everything. I didn't realize it fully did.
I know. See, then you know why I called you all excited the other day. So I was like, this is amazing.
Well, and the notion is we, to geek out a little bit, we created a world model of System C. So we basically said, take all the future casts that we have and what the future may look like. System C, there's no chronic disease. And essentially you're figuring out who needs to move in that direction. And that's the world model. And so all these bits of data fit into that world model, and it essentially creates an LLM of that future state that doesn't exist yet, and then lets you test the current innovations you're working on against that future to understand how it helps that future or how it's impeded by that future, but it lets you test it against a world that doesn't exactly exist right now, because that's the future world.
But we're simulating it. We're pulling all of the intelligence into it. And, Yuri's point to me this morning was, you and Carter have collectively pulled different people together, right? And we constantly are pulling these little groups together to say, we need to do all this. Well, the power of allowing people access that want to be able to be part of this and find each other. So it's not just Ellen and Carter matchmaking, but really opening it up for people to find each other and build things together and have a common language, a common context library, proprietary insights, proprietary information that, what you and I are working through, we talked about the other day, is like, how do I, if I'm, I'll pick on Samantha. Samantha's on here. If I'm Samantha Brooks and or David Alpert, and I have licensed a seat in this, how do I create my own proprietary box here and allow certain signals for the greater good, but kind of have my own sandbox of like, look, this is my own intelligence that is mine, that I'm pulling in here, and I'm going to start building from it. But I also want the collective to have more impact, so how do I balance both of those things?
So I sort of have built that. It's hurts my brain a little bit to be sure it's right, but I think we've got the basic innards that somebody can build their own world inside the system, and the system will say, against the public model, your world maps in this way. Do you want to further connect to it?
I'm your beta user. I'm ready. I've already figured out in my mind how to beta that.
And then, so to some degree, it's trying to figure out how to manage that connection and give you signals to say, you really should be connected to these other efforts. And then we increase the velocity of it. That email function you saw is, we're trying to really do hybrid AI here. So we have a bunch of humans with what we call tacit knowledge. The humans that sort of understand the way the world works in a way that the AI doesn't. What the humans can do is they can accelerate other connections. So you can say, here's the reason why Tim Kaine should care about this, and here's a draft email. But then it basically is saying, instead of me, the AI, just sending him an email, now I want Ellen to twist this, because Ellen has an understanding from the tacit human perspective. It speeds up Ellen's life because she's like, here are the 5 people that really maybe need to be touched by this, with a prompt. But I'm going to leave it to you, Ellen, to make the final comments here so that Tim Kaine pays attention to it, because he won't pay attention to the AI. So the notion is to really sort of increase the velocity of the network effect. When we think about why it takes a longer time for things to happen, it's because it takes a while for the network effect to take off. We all start using iPhones. We don't quite know how to use an iPhone. Now we all understand how to use an iPhone. Everybody uses an iPhone. That time frame is a function of I don't know how to get an iPhone to work. I don't know how to do this thing in an iPhone. That's just the lessons that we need to learn along the way to cause critical mass. And so what we're trying to do with this is, by streamlining the access to the connections and the knowledge and the signals, make it so that humans move at a faster pace and we can accelerate System C. But we're now 10 minutes over and I have to go.
Yeah, I have to go too, but we've now given a little preview into the fact that we have in fact built something. We are not just here to pontificate. We are here to integrate.
I do have to tell you a mind-bending thing is basically I've built all that. And then like you do the demo, it's like, oh yeah, is that how that works?
What I'm here for. I'm here to try it out, pick it apart, test it, ask for more, tell you what I don't like. But yeah, I'm super
I
pumped.
thought I had broken it the other day, so it's good the demo works.
You did, but I know you'll break it a few times.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
well, we have a lot of great people on. Hopefully they stayed. I'm glad that they were here. Obviously, we'll put this up for people to be able to rewatch if they were not here. And I think we'll get back on at the least every other week. And for anyone that's still here, I do a weekly with Kelly Springer on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 9:30 where we talk nutrition and we talk about good choices versus just avoiding bad ones. And we talk food. So join us then as well. And we'll put a fulcrum out on Sunday. We're going to get back in that routine. Fulcrums every Sunday. And then Crusonia is built and you guys are going to start seeing it roll out. Some of our most loyal folks are going to get emails about it, and I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, if someone wants to help Devitt, we need somebody to help it.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
okay.
All right. Thanks, Carter.
Bye.
Bye.